Well, good afternoon. We are still reading through the 14 rules of discipleship from Raise and Initiations, and we're on Rule 6. So getting right into it. Rule 6, a superficial reading of Rule 6 would give the impression that it is a simple statement as to the universality of life, and also that it embodies an enunciation of the basic fact of hylism. The rule runs as follows. Rule 6. Let the group know that life is one and naught can ever take or touch that life. Let the group know the vivid, flaming, drenching light that floods the fourth when the fifth is known. The fifth feeds on the fourth. Let then the group, merged in the fifth, be nourished by the sixth and seventh, and realize that all the lesser rules are rules in time and space, and cannot hold the group. It onward moves in life. I find it extremely difficult to express the significance of this rule in such a way that it will convey meaning to you, and this for two reasons. First, the idea of the one life is so prevalent and so customary and trite and unrealized truth that it registers on ears with very little effect. Secondly, the whole story of life, which is purpose, divine will, and absolute determination, and the eternal planning of the Lord of the world is so hard of comprehension that we have as yet no words in the language of any nation which can express it. What I am now writing is a series of instructions for disciples in process of training for initiation. I did not say in training for the higher initiations, for these are given in a different manner, and the teaching is imparted in the inner ashram. Therefore, as you have not taken the third initiation, monadic comprehension lies far beyond you, and only this highest state of understanding suffices for the clear perception of the fundamental divine intent lying behind all world phenomena, all evolutionary development, all unfoldment within the capacity of the four kingdoms in nature, and all preparatory extensions and expansions of consciousness. All I can therefore do is to touch upon the inner significance of the obvious and seek to express certain ideas which will strain your mental perception, evoke your intuition, and institute that process of recognition and registration which leads eventually to the initiate consciousness. This sixth rule is the polar opposite of the rule as it was given to applicants. There, if you will refer to my exegesis upon that rule in Initiation, Human and Solar, you will find the objective of that rule was physical purification, with the emphasis upon the need for a vegetarian diet at a certain stage of the preparatory process. The reasons for such a discipline were two in number: purification and the necessity for the applicant at that stage to refrain from sharing in the benefits incident to the so-called taking of life. But can one take life? I think not. Life is. Naught in heaven or on earth can touch or affect it. This is a point oft forgotten. The rule as given to applicants consequently concerns their ability to accept and adhere to self-imposed discipline. Through the means of that discipline, the control of the physical and astral natures are demonstrated by the applicant to himself, and the effect of the discipline is to reveal to him certain inevitable and basic weaknesses, such as control of the animal nature, the powerful imposition of desire, a sense of superiority, of pride, and separativeness. His ability to sustain the discipline and his appreciation of himself for so doing, plus a sense of superiority to those who are not so disciplined, are all indicative of essential weaknesses. His fanaticism, latent or expressed, emerges in his consciousness with clarity, and when he is sincere, he is conscious of having brought about a measure of physical purity. But at the same time, he is left with the awareness that he perhaps may be starting with the outer and the obvious when he should be beginning with the inner and with that which is not so easily contacted or expressed. This is a great and most important lesson. It is also an interesting illustration of the technique of the masters, whereby they permit a fallacy to remain uncorrected, because it is originated by the disciple himself and must be dissipated by him also, and the usage of language which conveys a wrong impression. By so doing, the user of the language discovers eventually his erroneous approach to truth. Life cannot be taken in the spiritual sense. This error or mistake in the approach of truth enables men and women upon a probationary path to demonstrate the earnestness and sincerity of their aspiration by the discipline of substituting the produce of the second and to refrain from sustaining life on the produce of the third. By sacrificing the life of the second kingdom in nature, to use the applicant's own misstatements, and by nourishing the physical body thereby, the probationary disciple does succeed in ending the grip or potency of the physical nature, and that is always helpful. He as yet does not know that he is adhering to lesser rules in time and space, and that once he has demonstrated to himself that he can hold them and obey them, he is then freed from them and needs them no more. The disciple and the candidate for initiation knows that life is one, whether it takes form in the second kingdom or in the third or the fourth. He knows that the life in him is one with the life in the first kingdom, the mineral. He learns, too, that life is impregnable, that it cannot be taken or destroyed, but passes on from form to form, from experience to experience, until the perfect will of God is expressed through life. The true disciple does not need vegetarianism or any of the physical disciplines, for the reason that none of the fleshly appetites have any control over him. His problem lies elsewhere, and it is a waste of his time and energy to keep his eye focused on doing the right things physically, because he does them automatically and his spiritual habits offset all the lower physical tendencies. Automatically, these developed habits enable him to surmount the appeal of those desires which work out in the fulfillment of lower desire. No one is accepted into the circle of the ashram, which is the technical name given to the status of those who are on the eve of initiation or who are being prepared for initiation. So no one is accepted into the circle of the ashram whose physical appetites are in any danger of controlling him. This is a statement of fact. This applies particularly and specifically to those preparing for the first initiation. Those preparing for the second initiation have to demonstrate their freedom from the slavery of ideas, from a fanatical reaction to any truth or spiritual leader, and from the control of their aspiration which, through the intensity of its application, would sacrifice time, people, and life itself to the call of the initiator, or rather, to be correct, to what they believe to be his call. I would point out that the third initiation is approached from a level tableland of experience and of consciousness, and not from the heights of aspiration, or from fanatical sacrifice, or from the standpoint of a devotion which handicaps the service of the devotee and of the master he seeks to serve. He knows, as a candidate for initiation, that 1. Life is one, and naught can ever take or touch that life. His sense of proportion as to form becomes adjusted. He is forward-looking towards the soul, and not backward-looking towards the form nature. Some very sincere devotees and promising applicants are so preoccupied with form and its disciplining that they have no real time to give to soul expansion. They are so interested in their reactions to their self-imposed discipline, or to their capacity to conform, or their failure to accept the discipline, that the spiritual truths seeking entrance into their hearts fail to make such an entrance. Temperance in all things, the wise use of all sustaining forms, and self-forgetfulness are the hallmark of the disciple, but not of the beginner. Many disciples today who should be functioning in the hall of wisdom are still fanatically working in the hall of knowledge, and are still so earnest over the physical disciplines that the disciplines of the soul are ignored. I would ask you to reflect on this. Applicants have to learn the significance of the words of Rule 6 for disciples. The lesser rules are rules in time and space and cannot hold the group. I wonder if you can grasp the type of consciousness which distinguishes the hierarchy, even if you are only able to do so imaginatively and theoretically. They onward move in life. They work in the realm of life energy. The form seems to them something which they have definitely left behind, and the consciousness of appeal or rejection of the form nature and hold is to them only a memory of a distant battleground where the victory then won has been forgotten, and the gains of victory are so far behind that they lie well below the threshold of consciousness. Broadly and generally speaking, workers in the ranks of the hierarchy, I did not say with the hierarchy, are divided into two main groups. Those who are working with the unfoldment of the initiate consciousness and the disciples of the world, and those of a more advanced degree who are working with the life aspect and its expression in the lives of the world initiates. Working disciples, who are working in cooperation with the hierarchy, are also working in two major divisions. Those who are dealing with applicants and are seeking to see the imposition of the physical disciplines and with the impartation of certain minor values so that beginners may grasp the point that they have reached. There are those also who are working to substitute understanding and service for physical discipline and the earlier inevitable selfish ends. Let me repeat. The physical disciplines are of value in the beginning stage and impart a sense of proportion and of awareness of defects and of limitations. These have their place in time and space, and that is all. Once the world of the soul is entered, the disciple uses all forms wisely, with understanding of their purpose and with freedom from excess. He is not preoccupied with them or fundamentally interested in them. His eyes are off himself and are fixed on the world of true values. He has no sense of self-interest because a group awareness is rapidly superseding his individual consciousness. The words, two. Let the group know the vivid, flaming, drenching life that floods the fourth when the fifth is known, are of prime importance to those who would and can profit by what I am seeking to convey, as I interpret, as far as may be, these rules. The knowing of the fifth kingdom in nature through the medium of the consciousness of the fourth and the sacrifice of the fourth kingdom to the fifth, of the human being to the soul, and of humanity to the kingdom of God, is the parallel, on a higher turn of the spiral, of the sacrifice of the third kingdom, the animal kingdom, to the fourth, the human kingdom. Thus it proceeds down the scale, sacrifice always of the lower to the higher. It therefore behooves the individual disciple to decide whether he is an applicant and consequently to be controlled by the rules in time and space, or a candidate for initiation who knows that life is one and that the form is of no material significance except as a field of experience for the soul. We now come to the most important part of this particular rule. It conveys the key to the immediate goal for those who have attained a certain measure of understanding. The words of importance are, 3. Let then the group merged in the fifth be nourished by the sixth and seventh. In other words, then let the group which is identified with the soul find its sustenance and vitality by the inflow of the intuition and of the spiritual will emanating from the spiritual triad. There are, of course, other meanings, but this is the most practical for disciples. A larger but similar concept lies in the realization that the human family, the fourth kingdom in nature, is absorbed by the fifth, or by the kingdom of God, and when in this case can become increasingly en rapport with the sixth and seventh kingdoms. To these kingdoms no names have yet been given, because the possibility of their existence is only now just beginning faintly to penetrate into the consciousness of the disciple and the initiate. Sixth kingdom is that of the overshadowing triads, that aggregation of liberated lives of which the higher initiates in the hierarchy are a part. They are to that spiritual group what the new group of world servers is to humanity. I know not how else to express this truth to you. The seventh kingdom in nature is that of the lives who participate in full capacity of understanding with the group of beings who are the nucleus of the Council at Shambhala. According to the Lord of the world, this group pivots. Their consciousness and a state of being is only dimly understood by the most advanced members of the hierarchy, and the relation of these lives to the Lord of the world is similar and yet fundamentally different to the relation of the members of the hierarchy to the three great lords, the Christ, the Manu, and the Mahachohan. Through these three lords pours the energy which streams from Shambhala, transmitting the purpose and motivating the plan of Sanat Kumara, his life plan. What you call the plan is the response of the hierarchy to the inflaming purposeful will of the Lord of the world. Through Sanat Kumara, the Ancient of Days, as he is called in the Bible, flows the unknown energy of which the three divine aspects are the expression. He is the custodian of the will of the Great White Lodge on Sirius, and the burden of this cosmic intention is shared by the Buddhas of activity and those members of the Great Council who are of so elevated a consciousness and vibration that only once a year, through their emissary, the Buddha, is it safe for them to contact the hierarchy. I am seeking only to point to a wider horizon than that usually registers by disciples, and I use these broad analogies to expand your point of view. By so doing, I can convey to the enlightened person a sense of synthesis, of purposeful planning, and of planetary integrity. This great spiritual structure of being, of life, and of direction is something that the disciples and initiates of the world need at this time in their effort to stand steady under the pressure of the world events and in their determination to cooperate unwaveringly with the moves and plans made by the world directors, that society of illumined and organized minds, which is known under the name of the hierarchy. It is illumination and consequent organization which is needed profoundly at this time. You will see, therefore, the significance of the teaching now being given out anent the building of the Antakarana. It is only through this bridge, this thread, that the disciple can mount on to that stage of the ladder of evolution, which will lead him out of the three worlds, which will bring the personality and into rapport with the spiritual triad, and which will finally lead the members of the hierarchy, when their term of service is completed, on to the path of the higher evolution. The Antakarana is built by aspirants and disciples and initiates of the seven-ray types, and is therefore a sevenfold woven thread. It constitutes the first stage of the path of higher evolution. It is to that path what experience in the mineral kingdom of the life of God is to that same life when it reaches the fourth or human kingdom. You can see, therefore, how significant is the coming of science of comparison. Not yet has this science of comparative analysis been turned into a definitely recognized line of approach to truth. The law of analogy is the key which unlocks the understanding. Something of the quality and the revelatory power of the intuition is known by all disciples. It constitutes at times, from its very rarity, a major spiritual excitement. It produces effects and stimulation. It indicates future receptivity to dimly sensed truths, and is allied, if you could but realize it, with the entire phenomenon of prevision. A registration of some aspect of intuitional understanding is an event of major importance in the life of the disciple who is beginning to tread the path to the hierarchy. It provides testimony which he can recognize of the existence of knowledges, wisdom, and significances of which the intelligentsia of humanity are not yet aware. It guarantees to him the unfolding possibility of his own higher nature, the realization of his divine connections, and the possibility of his ultimate highest spiritual attainment. It steadily supersedes soul knowledge, and the energy pouring into his consciousness from the spiritual triad, particularly the energy of the sixth and seventh spheres of activity, is the specific and particular energy which finally brings about the destruction of the causal body, the annihilation of the Temple of Solomon, and the liberation of the life. Then that which in time and space has been termed the soul can onward move in life. Evolution as we now understand it ceases, yet evolutionary unfoldment proceeds along new lines which are based upon the past, but which produced very different results to those sensed even by the advanced disciple in his highest moments. A new life expression appears which moves onward freed from all form, yet subject still to limitations within the circle of influence of the greater life, but not limited by life within the many forms which progress surrounded by that circle, that divine ring pass not. There is still the broad confining sweep of the purpose and the life intent of the planetary logos. But within that periphery and sphere of activity, the triads move with perfect freedom. Their onward push towards the higher states of being is carried out in conformity with the life urge of the one in whom they live and move and have their being. You will note, therefore, that these words in reality cover or deal with life processes and not with form building or the experience in forms as usually understood. A consideration of these at present inaccessible truths may serve to inspire your minds, evoke your intuition, and give you vision and increase spiritual perception. And there closes Rule 6.
Recording stopped.
Woo! Some new words for me in there.
Yeah.